Hi, my name is Abby, and in 2025, I challenged myself to stay with my art practice on a consistent basis and return to it over and over again, despite challenges, despite times when I lacked inspiration. I challenged myself to just keep coming back to my art. And in 2025, and going through that whole process, I learned so much about my creative process, about the ebbs and flows of inspiration, about skill building and how it comes in jumps, and sometimes there's pitfalls before those jumps. And as a result of returning to art over and over again, I kept a pretty consistent sketchbook practice that resulted in 4 full completed sketchbooks in 2025, and they are all pretty chunky. Does not look delicious. To me, that just looks delicious. I always keep 2 sketchbooks at any given time. The ones that I really like for the last number of years are super popular. They're the Royal Challenge sketchbooks. So that's these. And so I always keep a larger one. This is their, I think it's 8.5 by 11 size, and then they're 5 by 8 size. And as you can see, I paint and doodle on the front covers for a while. As soon as I started a sketchbook, I would sloppily paint on the cover so that it wouldn't be precious anymore. It would already be ruined, so to speak. So that's why these I'll have paint on them. These squiggly things is what I was doing. But I'm gonna start today with a sketchbook tour of the first large one that I completed in 2025. So this was completed between January and July. In this sketchbook, there are a lot of paintings and drawings. My sketchbooks are my everything sketchbooks. So that means that there is super quick, scratchy, sketchy stuff. And then there's stuff in here that's took time, fuller paintings, not anything that's polished. But I hope you'll enjoy looking through this with me as a pretty much beginner hobbyist artist. And I hope that some of this will be maybe inspiring for you to start your own sketchbook practice. So here we go. I've just blacked off my name there, but you can see I started it in January and ended in July on the same day, which was funny. This is a rainbow scratch paper that I just pasted into here. My daughter has a whole set of these, and one day we were doing them together, and this is the one that I did, and I liked it, so I stuck it in there. This is swatching of the Kuretake Ganzai Art Nouveau set. I used it a fair amount in the sketchbook. I've just gotten it. So these are 3-minute ducks from an Emma Carlisle Patreon session. And I use all different materials in the sketchbook. So this is some Derwent ink tints that I then, and maybe some Neocolor and some gouache and marker. It's a lot of mixed media. This was a quick ink, acrylic ink portrait with some Tombow marker over top. Ooh, this was like a bad art day. I wrote, I don't have the patience for branches. Yeah, and that is something you'll see. 2025 was the year of trees for me. I'm continuously trying to figure out ways to express trees, so it's kind of the start of it. Oh, so I had gotten the book Anatomy Studies, Atlas of Human Anatomy for the artist, so I was like, oh, I'll practice with it. This was the only time I ever did, but actually this was helpful for me. That one leg. Really quick, sketchy stuff. I think this was from an Emma Carlisle. Some watercolor and pen and some ink. Another Emma Carlisle. I did a number of her sessions at the beginning of the sketchbook, and then I moved away from that. But these are some chickens. I actually really love this page. Just smush some gouache around. mostly Inktense and Neocolors, Neocolor 2s, and more Emma Carlisle, some pretty rough life sketching, figure drawing with Inktense. I'm not even going to turn these, the anatomy is so bad, but it's just sometimes I had bad art days or bad art weeks, and this was part of me learning my creative process and the flow, that sometimes you're going to have bad art, and that's okay. So this, I would love to do this again, but this was an image that I was referencing from a TikTok, from the TikToker paper.human. She made this incredible snail wizard costume for the Ren Fair, and this is what she wrote on this amazing shell that she made out of like almost like a paper lantern, and I was really inspired by it, so I painted hers. Just some acrylic inks and Neocolors, a bunch of things in here. I really love this page. This is a life drawing session from Draw Brighton, their Patreon. I am a member of their Patreon. It's like $10 a month. It's super worth it. I use it consistently for portrait painting practice, life drawing. It's fantastic. So this was a recorded session that I watched, and I love her with the apple. And this one page, and these are 1 minute and 2 minute studies, this sort of changed things for me with life drawing, because I started to play with proportions and figuring out my lines, like these shoulders and just some exaggerated shapes, and that kind of changed my brain a little bit with this. This was from an Emma Carlisle session. Like I said, lots of Emma Carlisle at the beginning, and then we shift away. I think we're about to. More on the Carlisle. This is with calligraphy pen and watercolor. Then I went through a phase of drawing, painting, film stills. So I did a few of, from the Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice. I watched that movie, and I guess this is January or February, and was really inspired by the cinematography of that. So this is one where they're in their sitting room, and she's reading a letter, I think, from Mr. Darcy. I love this page. This is still one of my favorite sketchbook spreads that I've ever done. This is one of the film stills from that movie where she's out in this really beautiful field with her aunt and uncle. And this started where I got some sticks from my backyard and was using that as a drawing implement with acrylic ink. So you're going to see a number of spreads where I have drawn with a stick and ink, and then went back over with, in this case, watercolor and Neocolors. And basically what that meant was that it forced me to be very loose. And, you know, I even love just how loose those figures are and all the textures. And once again, tree, started being with trees. Get you back in frame. Then I started doing some master studies, and there's a lot of master studies in the sketchbook. And my approach to this was I wanted to do the master studies, not trying to copy it, but to make it in my style or my current style with my current skills and abilities. So I did a number of Fairfield Porter paintings. I love him. And so this was the first one. It's part of a painting of this huge tree, really, really beautiful. So once again, I drew it in with my stick and ink, and then went over with watercolors and Neocolor 2s. I also love this one. So this is, I hope people would recognize this. I super fell in love with The Lord of the Rings in the last few years, but particularly this past year, I was pretty enamored by The Lord of the Rings, and so I did, this is Frodo in the Shire at the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring. And this also opened up some stuff for me in my brain of how to layer, and yeah. Here's another Fairfield Porter. in my style with, at that time at least, with my stick and my watercolors. I really like this one. Okay. This is a still from the Secret Garden, the 1990s Secret Garden, which I really love that movie. I loved it in childhood, and I love it as an adult. I think it's a really beautiful movie, and it spoke to me a lot as a child. I really struggled with her face and these lips. I tortured these lips, and the paper, it just went right through the paper, pilled up. So you can see it over there. There's her lips. However, I do love the statue. This is another Fairfield Porter painting, and I really love this one too. And I layered a number of things. So there's ink with a stick, and watercolor, and marker, and neocolors. This was an attempted film still from Little Woman, the 1996 version. I really messed up his face and her face, and I sort of gave up from there. Another Draw Brighton life drawing session. I loved the proportions of her. So I tried to do it again, and you'll see it. But the original drawing is actually best. But this was a really fun session. It was recorded. This model did like all of these really unique poses. Like she's like upside down against a wall here. It was really fun. Yeah, so more of that. This is just with, I think, calligraphy pen and some marker and some neocolor. This was a really quick Matisse. I do a number of Matisses. Here's the next Matisse. Really like how this one came out. So this is with inks and then watercolors and neocolors. This is a Matisse self-portrait. I really like this one too. And then this is another Matisse painting. I messed up where I started, and you can see it got cut off. So I redo it in another page. You'll see in just a minute. So here's me trying to repeat that really fun drawing session. This one, with that girl. So I tried to do it again, but the proportions didn't quite work out. But I really like this one. And in this one, I was trying to use some more color and paint and play with light and shadow and some backgrounds. And I actually really like this page. So there's that Matisse again. Oh no, I'm sorry. This isn't a Matisse. This is from Susan Valadon, which I discovered at around this time. I really, really love her work. Right now, I'm really into exploring women artists of the Impressionist and mainly Expressionist era. And so, yeah, love this. And this is with ink and watercolor and neocolor. Here's another Valadon painting. Sorry for my sniffling. This is from a life drawing reference. It got really muddied in the background. These are some of the Tim Holtz Distress inks. You'll see a bunch of these from here on out. This is a drawing reference from a Draw Brighton life drawing recording that I made into more of a finished, not really finished, but very scribbly piece. Played with proportions, tiny head, big body. Lots of colors, watercolor, neocolors, inks, distress inks. I had skipped this page and then gone back to try to practice drawing this face. You'll see that piece in a second. This is, I think, a Seurat painting. I'm blanking. This is a really famous painting. I'm sure you'll recognize it. I love this page too. This is still one of my favorite sketchbook spreads that I've ever done. I started out with the distress inks. They're water soluble, and so smushed those around, and then added some watercolor. These are outlined with the calligraphy pen, And there's just some really cool textures. Like, I love that dog. Yeah. Quick sketch. So this is the piece that I was practicing those drawings before. So this is a still, or inspired from a still from the show House of David. Unfortunately, this background was really muddied, but I really liked how the tree came out, and this inspired more of my tree exploration. And I also really liked how he came out, which is unfortunate that the background got so messed up. Quick little sketch. So then I did it again, and this tree expanded on the tree, and this tree resulted in a few different paintings or a lot of paintings that I've done this past year. And I do like how he came out. It's different. I kept the cream of the page. This was some quick sketches for a still life painting that I did. Here is the painting. I actually have it right here. Another quick sketch for a still life. The sketch came out better than the actual painting, which isn't that funny how that goes. I love this one too. So this is a Cezanne, I think. Cezanne still life. And I really love the colors and the textures in that jug in particular. Just kind of the richness. So this is with watercolors and neocolors, some watered down, some kept the way they are, and the whole thing was drawn with my stick, I think. It looks like it. This drawing with the stick and the ink, it gives you like this really natural variation in line because you have to keep dipping it in and it runs out of ink. So this was the start of my portrait painting, which I've done a lot of this year in just trying to build up with my portrait painting skills. It's something that I turn to when I don't really have a current path that I'm trying to work on something with to create some of my own artwork. I'll return to portrait painting, and this was the start of that. So this is a Cezanne self-portrait that I copied, and this gave me a really good idea about all the different colors that you could use. And I kind of go crazy with that in a minute and you'll see it. But I really like how he came out. Little life drawing, a little painting of my cat Felix when he was a kitten on my kitchen counter. Just some play, really loose play here. These are some flowers that grow in my backyard against the wall of my house, and I had a picture that I took of them with the lighting where there was this like really cool shadow pattern on the wall, and so that's what all of that is. This is a really fast, I think, Cezanne. Yeah. Acrylic inks, acrylic ink for the outlines, the Tim Holtz ink pads, some neocolors. This is another Cezanne. I really like this color. I fell in love with this color then. There it is again. This is a portrait painting practice from a Gerard Brighton reference, which is all the ones that are not master studies are from Gerard Brighton. I really went crazy with the side of the face. But I do actually like how this came out. Here's another one. Came out really alien. I got this like mustard color around the eyes. Kind of had given up on it, but some drawing practice with marker, smishing some things around. This is Cezanne's wife. So I did the painting and then did up close. This is a little watercolor that I did with my daughter, and I cut it out and pasted it in there. Just more mushing some extra paint from my palette around, and this was a quick little drawing with paint of a photograph of me and my mom and my sister. This is a terrible painting of my husband. Really bad watercolor. But kind of, there's something about it that's like kind of medieval to me, and I'm not quite sure why, but yeah. So this is cool. These are some sketches of painting that I wanted to do that ended up being a series of these branches and negative space leaves, and initially it was for the bird being collaged, which I did do, and then I did a full painting of it as well. That is still one of my favorite things that I've ever done. This one is from an Emma Carlisle session. This is the only one that I did from that session, but I actually really like the texture and the swimmer. This was a quick marker and some neocolor of a view from my backyard in the summer. We get these amazing May apples, which is a native plant to our area, and they're really, really cool. And they only come up for a limited amount of time in end of April, May, and then they go away. So that's those. This is from a Jar Brighton reference. This is around the time that I got into collage. Like I mentioned, I did the bird collage. And so this was a quick collage plus drawing of the view off of my balcony in an apartment that I lived before we moved here. Had a view of all these like houses. These are some iris flowers. There's a whole patch of beautiful iris flowers that grow. This is May 8th, so I guess in May. We live on a cul-de-sac, and so it's like in the center of the cul-de-sac. So I was trying to figure out how to express that. I was interested in doing an iris painting, but struggling a bit with it. This I was just playing with some imagery for a potential series that didn't end up happening. This was some quick drawings from a screenshot that I took of this dancer on TikTok, and she's like dancing in these huge leaves. I don't know what kind of plant it was, but like huge leaves, really cool, and I still want to do something with that. This I was playing around with how many colors I could get from the limited inks that I had, the acrylic inks. I really love the acrylic inks. I use them in my sketchbook all the time, as you can see. Mixing it with some white, which is something that I do all of the time now. But I was just seeing how many colors, tones of darks that I could get. If you watch Survivor, you may recognize this because I think I got some likeness. This is Kyle from Survivor. And I think there was paint underneath here, and then I layered over top with some oil pastel or maybe neocolor. This might be neocolor. This is a Draw Brighton photo reference. There's no likeness, but this is where I started to feel like, okay, maybe I'm getting somewhere with portrait painting. But this was paint, acrylic paint, and then I layered over top some oil pastel. Same person, doesn't look the same, but just acrylics, and you can see all the crazy colors that I was using. I struggle a lot with skin tones. I'm not even going to show this. It just came out so bad. This was a hard week. I got into a rut where I was like, wow, I've lost all my skills. Do I even know how to draw? So these are some really quick birds that I just sort of smushed some stuff around. Some quick watercolor sketches for painting that I wanted to do of a bird in pokeberry branches. Really quick life drawing sketches with paint. Luna moth. this turned into a triptych painting that I did. And then this was an initial sort of like painting sketch for another painting that I ended up doing. This year, like I said, I was very obsessed with trees, still am, and nighttime, which I still am. So there's so much of that. Here's the sketch for that painting I ended up doing. And then a quick oil pastel sketch, portrait sketch, which then I did this painting. Which I think my biggest problem was that I was trying to paint way bigger portraits than is helpful to paint. But I actually liked how this one came out. I sketched in blue first, as you can see. So it's very cool toned, which makes her look kind of alien, but I don't particularly mind that. This is King Charles II. No. I hope you know who I mean. I may not have gotten that correctly. Terrible, terrible proportions. This was quick, playing with this concept of bokeh, painting bokeh, which I've done a lot now. And this is from a hosta flower. Yeah, these are hosta flowers. Some 1 minute life drawing sketches with ink. 3 minutes. A portrait. This is playing around with a potential painting of my backyard. Completely abstracted. Just playing with color. This is fun. So I really love, let me show you. I use these palette papers. This is a Jack Richardson palette paper pad. It's obviously blank initially. And I always love how the palette paper ends up. And so I save some and then cut them into strips and then sort of piece them together. More playing with this sort of potential painting view. These are the hostas in my backyard. Same thing. This was a portrait sketch painting that just went terrible, and so I gave up. Really quick, sketchy owl. This was the start of my exploration of owls. And then this is the last page. It might be hard to see. Beginning, first time I sketched any deer, obviously so rough. But I actually really like this is a drawing of my neighbor's tree. And I love the background. And that's it. Oh, if you're curious, I saved this. We went on a trip this year to Ojai, California, and there is this amazing, extremely cool outdoor bookstore there. If you ever got a chance to go there, I'd highly recommend it. It's called Bart's Books. It feels like it was like very Lord of the Rings to me, especially with this kind of medieval revival lettering, and I do stuff with that lettering at a later point. But that's it for this sketchbook. Thanks so much for watching and hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed, and I'm looking forward to showing you more.